Hey, this is Alan Stein, Leadership Performance Coach, and you are listening to Success is a Choice with Jamy Bechler.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler. The great evangelist Billy Graham once said that a coach will impact more young people in 1 year than most people will do in an entire lifetime. Today's guest is one such coach. RJ Barsh is the head men's basketball coach at Southeastern University, located in Lakeland, Florida. He has led teams to the national tournament and individually trained and mentored several NBA players. Coach Barsh is very passionate about teaching leadership and is known for tapping into the mind of athletes to help them exceed expectations and reach their potential. We're very excited to have RJ Barsh with us today. Welcome to the show, Coach.
I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to the dialogue.
Excellent, Coach. You know, the name of this podcast is Success is a Choice. So how do you kind of define and measure success throughout your career as a coach and a leader?
You know, I think when I was an assistant coach, I defined my success by managing the outcomes that my head coach wanted. And then, you know, when you're a young coach and you always tell yourself you don't want to be defined by wins and losses. And then I become a head coach, and I do define a little of my success on, you know, do you win the game? Do you lose the game? Do you have a winning season? But then overarching, it's the health of the program, the health of your family life, and do you have influence in your community and across the globe, whether you're winning or losing, because that speaks to your character. So success to me is building a winning program. But if you go through those tough years like we all do, if you coach in this game, things happen. Can you still have the character enough to have influence when the ball's not bouncing your way? So for me, success is using the avenues as a coach to get inside people's lives in the community, in your church, and then leveraging that influence to help people reach their goals.
How do you get your players to understand that when you talk about influence on the community and impacting lives, you know, when you guys are struggling a little bit or when things maybe aren't going well, how do you get your players to understand that there's a bigger picture out there?
Well, one thing that we've done in our programs is we have Barsh Topic Tuesdays, and it's kind of the DNA of wherever I've been. And on every Tuesday, we're going to do some either chalk talk about life, bring in an entrepreneur, bring in a doctor, bring in a barber, bring in a police officer, you know, go down into the community. So it becomes part of something we do weekly. And when you learn to get wins that way with your team, they understand the value of it, because when they're outside in the community and they see the people that they've seen over the course of 3 years, you're talking every Tuesday from September to April, you build relationships beyond the court. And those things are so valuable for young men to see that and to understand that. And I think a lot of basketball players don't really understand sometimes the level of influence they have on a young man that wants to play the sport they play. And once you take them to the community and you see them working with inner city kids and they see those smiles, the young men start to believe in the process and start to believe that it's bigger than basketball. But basketball does give you the platform to do that. So it becomes DNA of your program. You just have to reiterate those values you preach as a head coach.
Looking back on your career, what stands out to you? What are some of the things that you're most proud of?
If you walk into my office, actually my cubicle here at Southeastern, and you take a left and you look on the wall, the first picture you'll see is of a young man named Derek Davis, who was kind of had a bad background when I was in Tacoma, and he was a junior college kid, and one of the first guys I recruited. And his picture's on my wall because the young man turned into a phenomenal father and a husband, and he's doing really good things in the Seattle, Tacoma area. And a lot of people had turned their backs on Derek. And so success to me is the second chance athlete making a difference when they graduate. You know, all the schools that I've been at have been, you know, revived with second chance players. So success to me is the former player who someone, you know, gave up on, or the player didn't fulfill their duties and they had to find a new school, and then they finally figured it out and they made things happen. Now, I'll tell you this, Jamie, in my last 5 years at Southeastern, we have 11 student athletes that have graduated here that are working in education. 2 of them are head coaches at the high school level. And so that's huge when you can know that the DNA of your program and your culture is being inserted in other areas. One's in Lakeland here at Lakeland High School, and one's a head coach at a Christian school in Texas. And so those are the things that you look back on and have the extreme success about, and it makes you feel really good when you see those things happen.
Yeah, leaders growing leaders and leaving a legacy, with others and impacting others, indirectly. Now your impact has been multiplied. You mentioned Tacoma, Washington, and you're from that area, from the Northwest. Talk a little bit about your background and then how you got to Southeastern University.
Well, I played community college basketball at Tacoma Community College under one of the best junior college coaches in America at that time, Carl Howe, who had amazing influence with Division I, Division II coaches. So I knew playing for him would give me an opportunity to get into the game. We actually won a championship my freshman year, so I also understood the value of winning and discipline and culture and character and going to class and all those things. And so from TCC, I went to Central Washington University, where I played half a year, ended up getting a career-ending back injury. And after the back injury, I remember sitting in the office with Coach Spar. We talked about, where I saw myself going for the future. And being a high academic young man growing up, I decided it was probably better for me to move back home if I wasn't going to be able to play and be on scholarship. And I attended the University of Pugent Sound, which was a Division III school, which at that time it was unreal. I'm talking about Elite Eights, Sweet 16s, and so I was able to be on the coaching staff there and finish my bachelor's and really fell in love with the X's and O's part of coaching at that place. I think before that it was all individual workouts and offense and playing fast and different things. And at UPS, it kind of fine-tuned my thought process of how to be a leader in the classroom, how to be a leader on the court, how to engage your community, because that's what that liberal arts school was all about. And then after UPS, my friend got the job at Lincoln High School, which is one of the premier high schools in the state of Washington, and we were fortunate enough to go to Final Four, and then ended up back at TCC coaching with Carl Howe as an assistant coach. And we just had some success. Went to a couple Final Fours, and then my last year there, we won the entire thing. We had over 17 players in that 4 or 5 year span that went Division I or Division II to play college basketball. So continued to cast a wide net across the country with coaches. And one thing about me is I lead with my faith, so I want people to know what I'm about. And so there's a lot of coaches out there who kind of knew my story, knew what I was about. And Southeastern's Assemblies of God School in Lakeland, Florida, that was looking for a coach who could promote their faith values but also build a winning program. They're transitioning from small Christian college to the NAIA, so they needed someone who has some recruiting ties. And when that job opened, I was contacted by a couple friends who just knew that would fit who I was, and I applied for it. And next thing you know, I'm moving my family 3,000 miles at 28 to be a head coach of a school that hadn't won a playoff game in the NAIA. And I remember telling my wife, hey, two things can happen. We could do really good in 3 years and we can have a new job, or we can make this home, or I can go there for 3 years and not be good head coach, and we can always come back to Tacoma. I can always come back and coach at TCC or get in the sales. So it was a leap of faith, and by the grace of God, it's worked out.
Now, you mentioned your faith is kind of out there in the forefront of everything that you do. Other than that, what are some of the habits or traits that you kind of consider valuable or important to the success that you've had?
People will call me crazy, but the more I study people who live intentionally I'm waking up between 4:30 and 5 every single day. I believe that habit for me at this season in my life is essential, because you want to make sure that throughout your day, you're able to take those curveballs that come and hit home runs. So my meditation time in the morning, my workout time in the morning is vital and is essential to my well-being in my day. Here's just some hacks that I've been doing the last couple of years that I share all the time. As soon as my alarm goes off, I have this app called the Force app. Jamy, this app is unreal. It pretty much builds a tree for you on your phone, but you can't touch your phone. And so it's like you actively can't touch your phone, but you're doing something while your phone's not being able to be touched. And so as soon as I wake up, I put a 30-minute timer on my phone, because we all want to jump on email and Twitter and see what happened on ESPN. And I think that first 30 minutes of waking up and just being with your thoughts, going through your day, has allowed me to work at a higher pace and be more peace when I get my day rolling. I think that is extremely essential. I think also I've learned to, if I have a meeting throughout the day that I know is extremely important, I do what I call mental buffers, and I'll take the Forest app and I'll go for a walk, and it's just 5 minutes. And those small things to me have allowed me to be present at the moments I need to be present, and just be aware. And if anybody else that knows me personally will always know this as well, I always have a gallon of water. I mean, I am going to drink a gallon of water a day, and I think what that does is it helps my eating habits. It helps keep me focused, and it just keeps me, it reminds me every single day. I'll take a Sharpie and I'll write things all over the water bottle to remind me what I got to get done today, to remind me that, I can be great. And those little things go a long way for your players when they see Coach with his water bottle. So that's just one of the things that I do every single day, those couple things right there.
Well, you mentioned the Force app, and we will put that in the show notes so other people can check that out. I have not heard of that, so I'll be checking that out as well. You talk about being present. As a coach, you are very busy all the time, and you have lots of demands on your time, and you have 15 to 20 different sons, essentially, that you're trying to help out. What do you do with your own son, and what do you do with your wife? How do you have balance with your busy life as a coach?
I could tell you a short story that kind of explains that. A couple of years ago, my wife was diagnosed with leukemia, and her doctor came in the room, and it was very chaotic in our room, and her family was there. We were all in the room, and my wife was laying in the bed, and she's, hearing this news, and a couple of days go by, and it's still pretty chaotic in the room. And whenever my wife would ask the doctor a question, I mean, the doctor could be anywhere in the room, the doctor would stop what he was doing, he'd walk all the way over to my wife's bed, he'd pull up one of the small chairs, he'd sit down right there, and he would give her attention and eye contact for those 2 minutes and just listen. And to me, that's kind of what, as a coach and as a leader, those small gestures of being present when your family needs you are important. My wife and my son understand that, my life is in a rhythm, so there's some months that are extremely crazy, and there's some months where there's some downtime. I think one of the benefits of marrying somebody who understands your purpose and also understands your, what your dreams are, goes a long way in achieving that balance. I mean, we always have Thanksgiving on the Monday I get back from my Thanksgiving tournament. My wife loves it because she doesn't have to run around the store the week of Thanksgiving. And so there's just little things that we do. My son is big into weightlifting, and so we'll lift weights together. He's put me on a eating regimen, and so we have those interpersonal conversations that we continue to have. What we don't do is we don't really celebrate basketball achievements a lot in my house, which some coaches and people would not understand. Is if we win a big game, when I get home, it's not a bunch of high fives and I can't believe you won that game. And when I lose a game, it's also is he going to be okay? And at first, when I was a young coach, that bothered me. But what I realized is my family understands me so much that they know that I'm in it for the right reasons. So winning and losing is not going to change my attitude when I get home. And so that's big, that you just understanding each other's values as a family.
Looking back on your career, if there's something you could do differently, is there anything that you would have done along the way, either as a basketball player, as a coach, anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think as a basketball player, I wish I would have had a trainer growing up because I've done a lot of individual training with some high-level players, and there's a lot of times where I'm doing drills, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have had somebody to do this for me when I was in 7th and 8th and 9th grade. Another thing that I sometimes sometimes, I don't regret, but I look back on it and say I wish I would have, understood that more, is when I was at the junior college level, the relationships with coaches and recruiting, making them long-term versus transactional for their one player, right? So I would go recruit a kid from a certain high school and get close to the coach for that kid and then move on to the next coach. And now in the last 4 years, I've realized that it's all about relationships, and I should have way more relationships based on my coaching trajectory. And I think a lot of times in my recruiting and in some of the basketball circles I was in, it was just purely transactional relationships. And so I know I missed out on some incredible friends and some incredible opportunities to grow as a leader if I would have been more engaging and transformational in conversations with coaches beyond just, wanting their best player to play for me. And so that's something I think about often. Even when I go in gyms and recruit, I try to remind myself, okay, make sure when you're talking to this coach, you're not just talking to them for that transactional relationship.
That's good. That's good. Now, you've been very successful in your career, but I imagine things haven't always been, as smooth as you would like them. What are some challenges you've faced, or maybe a favorite failure that you have?
I would say the biggest challenge I faced was my first year being the coach at Southeastern. When you've won everywhere you've been at as a player and as an assistant and as an AAU guy, you're just so used to winning, and you get to an institution and you're building the winning pedigree, and you're doing things on campus and you're trying to get people to believe, is how do you help people believe when you're in the midst of a 2-game losing streak that turns to 3, that turns to 4, that turns to 5, 6, and then 7 games in a row in the month of January. And I remember going through that month of January, Jamie, and I was driving to campus after our third loss, and I just wanted to hide. And so I wanted to park next to my office, walk upstairs with my headphones on, put my head down, and just watch film and try to figure out a way to win. And I remember one day when I was driving, and I was thinking to myself, this is an opportunity for me to practice what I preach. And so actually what I did is I parked the furthest away from my office, and so I had to face all the students and faculty as I walked through campus as we were going through that losing streak. And I smiled and I high-fived people. I would bring donuts to classrooms like we were undefeated, the number 1 team in the country. And I created so many relationships through that process, and so many people that started to believe in what we were about, that the next year when we made the run to the Final Four, I had a teacher say to me, I didn't know if you were in the Final Four this year or last year based on how you walk campus. So that failure of losing 6, 7 games in a row revealed to me how I should be in moments when you're going through that valley, and understanding how to handle them. And I would say the second one was, as a coach, you recruit, but sometimes you just have injuries. In the past 2 years, we've had 8 major injuries, and we've had to reform our rosters and coach different. And I think that helped me grow, learning how to coach different because you didn't have the personnel you thought you would have. So I would say a favorite failure are those two, because it made me, 1, a better coach, and 2, when you lose players through injury and you have to coach a different style, it helps you win games long term because you learn to coach a different way. And so those are probably 2 of the things that stick out the most.
We'll return to the interview with RJ Barsh shortly, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know about something that goes hand in hand with what he is trying to do at Southeastern University in developing his student athletes and giving them the best experience possible. We have written a book entitled The Leadership Playbook, Become Your Team's Most Valuable Leader. It's packed full of insightful stories and practical tips to help student athletes become better leaders and teammates. When we help develop students, we are also helping to influence the future in a positive way. So please visit theleadershipplaybook.com for more information. And now back to our interview with Coach Barsh. What are you doing now to ensure that you continue to grow and develop as a leader? Because you're always pouring out and giving to your student athletes and to others as a leader. What are you doing to help yourself?
I really believe in mentors, and I really believe in the value of having people speak into your life. I will call my junior college coach every single day, ask him a basketball question, ask him about life, and we will talk, and he will remind me of certain values that I have to have on the court to make sure we win X's and O's. And then another mentor is Stan Jones at Florida State, who periodically will reach out to me and remind me of why I have faith in my life, why I need to coach this way. day. And then my pastor, Paula White in Orlando, is somebody who challenges me personally with my integrity, with my character. And then every Sunday morning when we meet in the mornings, it's just, hey, where are you at in life? You know, how are you managing these tensions? And I believe that you've got to have mentors because, you know, you're going to experience things that you really can't define during your career that someone can define for you and help you understand. And that really changes the way you stress out about events. You know, if you don't know the outcome of a certain, you know, issue because it's your first time experiencing it, it can put you on a spiral unless you have a mentor that says, hey, this is going to happen and then this is going to happen. Why? Because I've lived 40 years longer than you and I've been through it. So just weather this storm and then tomorrow will be okay. Or when you're winning and you're playing well, hey, don't let success go to your head. Make sure you're still getting better. Like, have people that can call you out. You know, if I could give any advice to any coaches or young coaches or leaders out there, one thing that I've done with my mentors is I call it the red carpet. I give mentors in my life the red carpet at any moment to challenge me, chastise me, call me out, make me accountable. I think so many times leaders, we're not told what we need to get better at because people coddle our feelings and they don't want to hurt a relationship. And with all those three people I've mentioned, Stan Jones, Carl Howard, and Paula White, there's been a couple of days where I couldn't stand them because they tell me some truths about myself that I needed to change. And so knowing you have those people in your circle go a long way.
Sometimes as coaches, we want our players to be coachable, but we're not very coachable, and we're not
That's
open.
So real.
Yeah.
That's so real.
What, you know, other than that and what you mentioned earlier about, you know, you kind of took a short-term transactional approach to contacts and dealing with people, especially in recruiting. Are there mistakes or behaviors that you see people making more frequently than others that can sidetrack them or keep them from reaching their potential?
The biggest one that I see right now is the disease of comparison, because everyone is dreaming for, you know, a better life of themselves. And usually when you say you're dreaming about something, you think of somebody else's life who is where you want to arrive. And if you start to compare your journey with somebody else's journey, oftentimes you will feel bad about yours because when you look on social media, when you look on these websites, you're only seeing the highlight reel of somebody's life. And so you judge everything you've gone through based on someone's highlight reel, based on their social media followers, or, you know, how many books they've written, how many championships they've written. I really believe in this culture, in this generation, we've really got to stop comparing, be authentic, because I really believe what happens is comparison leads to depression, and then depression leads to you not even having your dream anymore. And if we stop comparing ourselves to each other and just be authentic, be who God created us to be, I think this world will see a lot of change in the world, because when you are who you are, things happen. I can give you myself, for example. There's plenty of coaches who and friends of mine who continue to ask, why don't you try to go Division I, or why don't you try to do this? Man, if that happens, by the grace of God, I'll be excited. But this is where I'm at, and this is a great place for me, and this is exactly where I feel like God has me right now. So there's no need for me to compare myself to a guy like Shaka Smart, who's coaching at Texas and doing a phenomenal job. Doesn't mean that I'm not a good coach because I'm not in his shoes and we're in the same age bracket. I think a lot of coaches do that, and it hurts their careers.
Now, you had, that reminded me, you had for a while, and maybe you still have it pinned, a pinned tweet on your Twitter account about kind of comparisons, or when you said people saying that they're going to do things or comparing to others. You know, you're down in the South, and a lot of times they say we're fixing to do something. I used to remember saying, you know, well, some people are fixing and some people just do it. And talk a little bit about that tweet that you had, or that video that you had.
Well, what happens is when you're on a campus with 3,000-4,000 young people and you're involved in their lives, a lot of young people will come up and tell me what they're going to do or what they're dreaming about doing. And then my first question will be, oh, show me some receipts. Okay, what have you done to be able to rightfully have that dream you want? And then a lot of them don't have a response. And so what I've done is, in studying the mind and studying how we work emotionally and intuitively, when you are talking about a dream you want to accomplish, like when I say I want to win a national championship and I'm talking to a friend of mine about, man, you know, what it would feel like to cut down that net and to put it around my neck, my friend is going to then respond to me in a way like I have accomplished that dream. He will say, man, that was going to be amazing. That's going to be so cool. Can you imagine? And then you live in that moment falsely for a minute. And then if you continue to do that, you continue to wear away from the grit that you're going to need to fight and have that dream, because you start feeling that false notion of having achieved it when you haven't. You can put on Twitter that you did something that you didn't do in this generation, and people can like it and retweet it, and you didn't do anything. And so for me, this is the generation where you have to start working. You know, a shirt that I gave out to my entire camp last year was, dreams don't work unless you do. And a lot of people have dreams, and a lot of people don't work. It's similar to church. I remember saying this about 6 or 7 months ago when I was ministering at a church. You know, everyone wants to have faith to move the mountain, but ignore the shovel that God puts in their hand. And I just think we got to go to work. We got to get up every single day, and we got to go to work, and then the dream will happen. It will become a reality.
Coach, where can people interact with you or connect with you if they want to find out more about you and the stuff that you're doing as a coach and as a leader?
You know, the best place is on Twitter at Coach RJ Barsh, and that's Coach RJAY, Barsh, BARSH. Or if you just hashtag in any social media, Sky Motivation, SKY, and then motivation, one word, you'll be able to find me. I've been hashtagging all my tweets Sky Motivation for a long time, back into my junior college days. And so, yeah, I'm easy to find on there. None of my stuff is private. It's all public, so you can send me a message. And I just love working with people who are inspiring others to do better.
Great. We'll make sure to put those in the show notes so people can connect with you. What are some podcasts or books that you might recommend or currently consuming?
How I Built This by Guy Raz, I think, is a great podcast. He talks to people who've built big companies and talks about their journey. Probably my favorite one was Whole Foods, and John Mackey's story of how he built Whole Foods. Let me see. Quick Brain by Jim Quick is a good one. The podcasts are 13 to 15 minutes, and it's just mind hacks and how to be sharper and how to be more intelligent. And then for coaches, I think probably one of the best ones is Pure Sweat by Drew Harrell and Alan Stein. They give a lot of tangible application insight on their podcast that you can go use the next day in practice. So I love those podcasts.
Who would you like to meet or get to know or spend time with that you don't already know?
Not living, I would say Smith Wigglesworth, old school Pentecostal preacher who had a faith that was unbelievable. I love to just hear his story. He was a janitor that had a stutter that ended up being a very intelligent speaker. And then probably living, I would say Malcolm Gladwell. I've been able to shake his hand a couple times, but just the way he's able to take current events and write books and put it into the framework to how we can use things. And he's interviewed and talked to a lot of guys I would want to meet. So I feel like a dinner with him, I would get to talk to everybody else I wanted to know.
What is a purchase that you've made that's $100 or less that had a profound effect on your life?
Audible.com.
Okay.
$15 a month. My Bluetooth headphones, about $79.99. And I'm consistently listening to books, listening to podcasts. But that Audible.com, every fourth of the month when I'm able to download a new book, is very exciting for me.
Well done, Coach. They are a show sponsor, so thanks for giving them the plug. So definitely Audible.
Excellent.
Other than Audible and other than what you'd already mentioned with your the Force app, is there a productivity tool or app or another resource that you would highly recommend?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and this might sound cliche, but it's the Bible app, and here's why. You can go on the Bible app, and you can put in notifications for scriptures to pop on your screen like a text message throughout the day. And for me, that's very helpful because when you make those notifications and you're in the middle of your day or you're on a road trip and you're stressing out about something and you pick up your phone and you think it's a text message from a player who needs something, it's Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's those little breaks have helped me so many times in the last 5 years. And that's the Bible app, just a quick reminder of why I do what I do and why it's important to have those times in your life to do it. And then there's another one called Blink, and it's an app that it gives you cliff notes of books. It's kind of an expensive app, but it will read any book that you want, and then it will audio you the cliff notes of the book. And so it's a really, really good app that I spend a lot of time on when I find a book that I want to read and don't have time, and it's called the Blink List.
Okay. As a basketball coach, you're essentially living a reality show. You're under the microscope a lot. But if you could be on any reality show on TV, what would it be?
Married to medicine. My wife is about 2 weeks away from graduating from nurse practitioner school. So my life it revolves around her telling me war stories in the hospital, and then me trying to figure out when do I tell her that's enough. So Married to Medicine, or maybe the Kardashians, because my wife loves watching that show. So I feel like we could show up next door and fall right into place.
Now, you have what many would consider a dream job as a college basketball coach, but is there something else that you would, not that you would rather do, but if you could do anything else, you couldn't be a coach anymore, is there something that you would want to do?
I'm going to answer this one longer than some of the other ones real quick. When I hear that question, and I've asked that question a lot by students when I speak in classrooms, man, and it's really hard because anything that I've really wanted to do in my life, I've just went out and tried to do it. And whether that's acting or music, if I've wanted to try it, man, I've went out and tried it. So there's nothing that I would do if it wasn't for basketball, because I've went down that road. I know there's other avenues as coaches that I wanted to be in ministry. So I found a way to be on a pastoral team in Orlando. I wanted political, influence, and wanted to be able to help my community. And, a month ago, I'm in a meeting at the White House. And so you just got to go. I don't think you have to, if you answer that question and you put something there, I think you got to really self-reflect and figure out why you're not doing it. And if you're listening and there's a job that you would do if you could, man, do it. There's people who have reinvented themselves in their 50s and their 60s, and if you're listening and you're not that old, and man, just get it done. Because when you're living who you're supposed to be, life is a dream. And every single day I wake up and it's just like, wow, I get to live this life. I'm so blessed that God has graced me to make decisions to be able to do this every day.
Man, great thoughts, Coach. I appreciate that. And we appreciate your time today. I know you're busy. You're right in the middle of your season. So thank you so much for taking the time to give us some insights, and good luck this season.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me on.
Those are some great insights by Coach Barsh today. I know I took a lot of notes. I hope that you did too. I hope that you enjoyed those insights that he provided, whether you're a coach, a leader, a manager, a supervisor, or just a parent in general. Please do us a favor. Would you go give us a 5-star review on iTunes? Ratings and reviews are the lifeblood of a podcast, and we would appreciate you doing this. Plus, this will help other people find out about the podcast as well. Thanks so much for doing this. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?